In this movie, I'm going to introduce you to our third wall family, the curtain wall. Now, the curtain wall is the most complex of the three wall families. It can vary both along its length and along its height, and it can have complex grid patterns embedded directly into the curtain wall design. Now, there's a few different ways we can work with the curtain wall. We can actually set up complex curtain wall types that set up a repetition that will occur along the length and height of the curtain wall. And we can even do a series of curtain wall grids and mullions manually to create custom designs. In this movie, I'm going to look at the type-based curtain wall designs, the built-in ones that are in our template that we started with, and then in future movies, we'll take a look at some of the other options. To get started here, I'm going to draw a small piece of curtain wall, and I'm going to do that just in this floor plan with the wall command. Now, keep in mind that a curtain wall is an actual wall object, so when you come over here to the type selector, you've got all your basic walls at the top, and then somewhere down here, you're going to see the curtain wall family. And then beneath that, you'll see the different types of that curtain wall family. Now, there's a curtain wall, which is a really generic one, exterior glazing, and storefront. I'm going to use storefront because of the three that are included in this template, it's the one that's the most complex, or it has the most amount of features in it. Now, I'm going to just draw that off to the side over here, and maybe I'll draw that about 4,500 millimeters. I just, kind of make a small random length there. Let me click the Modify tool, and I'll start off by zooming in on that in the floor plan. Now, what you're going to see is that there's a repetition and a bay spacing here in the curtain wall. Now, if you move your mouse near the curtain wall, it will actually highlight with a dashed line down the middle of it, and it has these sort of two dashed lines at the end. That's the curtain wall itself. But if you move your mouse near some of these bold elements here and start to tab, you can actually reach into the curtain wall and select those elements. So there's panels, there's mullions running vertically, and then this vertical line that you see here, that's actually a curtain wall grid. So all of those parts and pieces are things that we can configure within the curtain wall, and they have an impact on the overall design. Now, let's take a look at this in our 3D view. I'm just going to open up the default 3D view here, and let me just orbit around and look at it from the other side here. Okay, so you can see that there's the curtain wall again with that dashed cage kind of around it. That's the entire curtain wall. But if you use your tab key, you can reach in and touch the individual mullions or the individual panels like so. So again, keep in mind that it's very important how you select a curtain wall, whether or not you want to manipulate the curtain wall itself or some of the internal subcomponents. Now, let's look a little bit more at the behavior of this. So I'm going to select the curtain wall itself, and you'll see that you get two small little grip dots here at the bottom ends, and then you get these little triangular grips here at the top. If I take one of these little triangular grips, you notice that you have a small bay at the top and a tall bay down below. If I start to drag this, notice that that bay at the top is getting larger, and at some point, it will actually introduce a new bay. So there's a spacing built into this curtain wall design that says what the bay size ought to be, and then any leftover is just applied at the top. Now contrast that to the behavior that we're seeing running linearly. When I start to drag in this direction, it doesn't matter how long I make it. Notice that I'm always getting an equal number of bays. Now, right now I have 5 bays, and if I drag it enough, I may very well end up with 6 bays. I still have 5 there, and now I have 6. So at some point, it decides when to add a new bay, but it always keeps all the bays equally spaced. So let's look at the type properties of this curtain wall to understand how that's being achieved. So with it selected, I'm going to come over here and click Edit Type, just like we've done with many other types here in Revit. So let's talk about the vertical and horizontal grid. Now, the vertical grid are the bay lines that are running vertically, but that actually determines those horizontal bays. And you'll notice that the layout parameter that's being used there is maximum spacing, and that's currently set to 1524. So that's what we witnessed when we were dragging it linearly, and at some point it added a new bay and then adjusted the size of all the bays. So the bays can't get larger than 1524, but they all have to be equal when you're using a maximum spacing. The same is true if you change that to a minimum spacing. It's just that it would go for the minimum number before it added another bay. Now, in the horizontal direction, you'll see that it's using a fixed distance of 2400. So that's what we witnessed when we started stretching it vertically, and we got a bay, and then another full-size bay, and then a little bit of leftover at the top. So because this is a fixed distance, anything beyond a multiple of 24, it's going to just add the leftover at the end, okay? Now, in both of these cases, it's actually possible to check these boxes and adjust for the thickness of the mullion. So currently, it's actually going to the center lines of the mullions when it determines these two spacings. But if you want to ignore the thickness of the mullion and have it determine the size of the panel, then you can check those boxes. Now, about those mullions, if we scroll down a little bit, we've got settings for both vertical and horizontal mullions. And at the moment, all 6 conditions are set to the same mullion, but each of these is a drop-down list where you could actually choose from other types of mullions and apply them either vertically, horizontally, or around the 4 edges. Now, the final setting I want to point out is up here where it says automatically embed. Now, notice that there's a checkbox in there, and that's currently turned on. So let me cancel out of here. I'm going to delete this curtain wall, and I'm going to go back to my level 1 floor plan. And the drawing is over here somewhere. So let me just zoom out and find it. And I want to focus here on this stair area, and I want to show you what the automatically embed feature does. So I'm going to go back to the wall command, make sure storefront is selected, and I'm going to actually draw this new storefront curtain wall directly on top of my existing exterior wall at the stair here. So I'm going to click right here and maybe drag to about here. I'm just watching my temporary dimension there. Maybe 5,200 millimeters seems pretty good. And notice what it did. Do you see how it actually cut right into the wall? The automatically embed feature is basically making the curtain wall behave like a door or a window. So let's take a look at that in 3D. Go ahead and zoom out here. You could see it right there. Now, just like we saw before, I can select it. I can even drag it up and make it taller, right? And it will add that extra bay. And if I want to manipulate this maybe a little bit more carefully, I can go to the north elevation and focus in on that bay. And what you see there is when I highlight the wall, it's literally cutting a hole in a wall all the way around, just like a door or a window would. Now, maybe I want to make this a little bit taller to let the maximum amount of light in the stair, but I'm a little concerned with that corner condition right there. Well, any wall we can do this next feature to. I'm going to do it to a curtain wall, but we could do it just as easily to a basic wall as well. So I've selected the curtain wall, and again, make sure you're clicking where you've got that dashed line going all the way around, and then I'm going to click this Edit Profile button. That's going to put me in sketch mode, but the sketch that I'm modifying is actually the shape of the curtain wall's elevation. I'm going to go to Pick Lines, come over here to the Offset field, and decide how far away from that diagonal line I want to be. So maybe about 1,200 millimeters. I'm going to highlight the edge of the eave of the roof and click. And that will create a diagonal line that's parallel offset from the existing roof. I'll cancel there, go to Trim and Extend to Corner, trim this up, and then when I click Finish, notice how it will actually remove that corner of the curtain wall. Now, I did a really simple thing there with a straight line, but you can do curves or really any shape you want and start sculpting the shape of that curtain wall. And you can see that the mullions and the other grid lines and everything kind of adjust to match that new shape. So a curtain wall is a more complex wall assembly. It's an assembly of parts, mullions, grids, and panels, and we'll look at those in detail in a future movie. But you have all those components together in a type-based curtain wall, and you just simply draw the wall, and so it will give you that standard repetition both along the length and the height of the curtain wall.